Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with Maryland State Golf Association and at this great club, Manor Country Club.
Sure is. Bob, from all of us, congratulations on your induction into the Hall of Fame. I know that meant a lot to you.
Yes, it was a great honor, and for me, it was just great to join Mr. McLeod, Columbia's first pro, and Mr. Strasbaugh in that Hall of Fame. So, very grateful for the PGA for the recognition.
You know, a phrase I hear often when your name comes up is old school. Some of you might have heard that one before. What does that mean to you, old school?
It's old school. That's a pretty good place to start, I guess. You know, I have my preferences. I prefer to walk with a caddy than ride in a cart. I prefer to play golf in under 4 hours, not over 4 hours. I like to do my eating and my drinking after my round in the grill room, not on the golf course. And I prefer to get a scorecard and a pencil on the first hole. I really don't like to keep my score on my telephone. So, I guess that's old school. If that's old school, I'm guilty.
And as a pro, though, you've had a chance to see some values and evolution in the values of the game. How did Bill Strasbaugh feel about that?
Well, I think that, well, the coach always believed, and I think that those of us who had the privilege to be around the coach, Kevin and Jim, you know, coach always believed that the game was over-taught and under-coached. And I think that he would embrace the technology that's in teaching today. I know that I had the opportunity to work with him when I got to Columbia. I brought video to the tee. And he was intrigued. Because keep in mind, back when he was teaching, you know, you'd have to hit your share of golf balls before the pro could really zone in on what the flaw was. And, you know, he was TrackMan before there was TrackMan. And he taught all of us to work with the ball flight. And I think that's what TrackMan helps us with today. So I think he'd be appreciative of the fact that it speeds the process up so that you could get the teaching over with quickly and get on with the coaching, which I think is the most important part of the teacher-student relationship.
Can you talk a little bit about what some of the examples you have of coaching as opposed to teaching?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, if you're going to be a good golfer, there's plenty of them out here. You know, you have to have more than just a pretty swing, right? You need to understand your equipment, including the ball. You got to know how far each club goes, and you got to know, you know, what the best equipment is for you. You got to get with your pro, and you got to make sure that you're fitted properly, and you get that aspect of it. Part of your equipment, and Ryan McCarthy and I were talking about it earlier, is you know, your body is part of your equipment. If you go out on a PGA tour, you know, the players out on the tour, they spend an extraordinary amount of time working on their bodies. If they'll ask you, you know, they have teams, they have teachers, they have caddies, but they have physios. And, you know, the physio's got to get them ready to play. Recovery is so important when you're playing on the next level, or you aspire to play on the next level. I think that we all see Billy out on the driving range at Columbia, and we see him out on the putting green, but what we don't see is the work that he puts in at 6 a.m. in the gym. Getting ready for the tournaments and getting ready for play. And then, of course, there's the mental side of the game. And that's so important, right? Because if you think you can, you can. And what we're really trying to do with our players is, hey, we're all scared. We're out there on the tournaments, and we have to try to help encourage people and get them better prepared.
One of the things I've watched you coach over the years is helping students learn how to shoot a score. You've got a number of techniques for that. Short game-orama that you call it is one, and there's some others. Maybe you could share some of those with us tonight.
Well, short game-orama really happens I'll take credit for inventing that game, but we do it. You might have a different name for it at your club, but you know, nothing irritates the pro more than when he looks out on the putting green and the kids are all goofing around and they're all practicing their super fill flop and hitting, just clowning around, and they're not really taking advantage of their practice time. I mean, now that we're all older, I mean, we would just absolutely love to have an extra half hour to practice. These kids have all day and they spend most of it goofing around. So I walk out on the putting green at Columbia, and the challenge is you get 3 shots. You get 3 balls, and you have to get those 3 balls in the cup in 6 shots. And until you do, so you have to chip it, putt it, chip it, putt it, chip it, putt it. And when you get to 6, or you do better and get to 5, then you can move to the next location. And just creating a challenge. And then the other thing that we have done in the past with our juniors is we get them to go out and play the forward tees at our course. The green tees are the most forward tees. And play the front 9 from the forward tees, and then play the back 9 from the black tees, the furthest setback. And what that helps train the kids to do is, you know, get out a couple under par and then get on the back tees and see whether you can hold it there. And then the next day, you know, it's nice to get the kids to play from all the way back in the beginning, and maybe they're a couple over par to turn. If they can get on the green tees on the way in, see whether they can fight back. Because shooting scores is what it's all about. And I think that no big surprise that we handed out several awards to the Argyle Club today, and you know, what a great example of scoring, because if you're going to shoot a good score on that golf course, you have to really come out of the gate, you know, 1, 2, 3, and it trains you to really take on the challenge and learn to shoot lower scores.
One of the things that you've shown us a lot is ways to make the juniors feel welcome and included at Columbia. One of the things that you've done is pair juniors with adult better players. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, there's a couple of guys here who have been mentored and are now mentoring.
Yes, and thank you for your participation through the years, for sure. We have a tournament we play a couple times a year, and we call it the Pro Scratch Junior. And so the groups are made up of an assistant pro, a scratch player, and 2 juniors. And the whole intention of the round is to make sure that Michael Mitchell knows the up-and-comer juniors. Because if Steve's not out on the range and the kid has a question, you know, we want him or her to be comfortable with going up to Michael and getting Michael to help him with a little guidance, and Richard and all the great players. They know when I call them to ask them if they're going to participate, you know, they jump at the opportunity to get back to the game. So it's really proved to be beneficial for us.
Let's talk a little bit about your participation as a player in Maryland State events, and also Columbia as a host. You've been a tremendous supporter of the association over the years, and you've been a very big advocate of hosting outside events at Columbia. And hosting outside events is not always the most popular thing with members. Why have you led Columbia to host so many events?
Well, I think that, my first introduction to Maryland State Golf was caddied for Jim Fitzgerald. We figured out it was in the 1978 Maryland Open here at Manor Country Club. And it was great, because he could really play. Really play. And congratulations once again on that super senior victory. And how you figured out how to shoot the scores on that golf course is beyond my wildest imagination. For those of you who were there, you know what I'm talking about. But Jimmy was so kind, and he invited me to caddy for him. I didn't know anything about golf. I just moved to the area, and he took me under his wing, and I just admired the way he carried himself. You know, not only was he a great golfer, but everybody knew him, and he knew everybody. And then the next year, I got invited to play in a mixed tournament by Diane Herndon. So we went out, same thing. She was a great player. Everybody knew her. She knew everybody. So when you're coming up in the state of Maryland and you're finding your way, those are two pretty good role models, I would say. And they always encouraged me to participate. And then I think, like Billy pointed out earlier, you know, when you do participate, and you do host, you know, you see the energy and the effort that people put into the events. And it's really special to watch, you know, they show up bright and early, and they stay there real late. And just really volunteering their time to make the game better for all of us. So when I see that kind of effort, the least I can do is show up and participate. And if I can have any influence on my club in an effort to host, then I certainly would be expected to do so.
It's just terrific what you did for not only.
Well, thank you.
So back to playing for a minute. We're sitting next to the A-Team trophy. Might mean something to you. During your tenure at Columbia won 6 titles, making the total of 12, including 4 in a row, starting your first year on the job at Columbia. Now that just didn't happen by accident.
Well, I got a lot of great players on that team, that's for sure. But you know, back to Mr. Strasbaugh, I can remember, Richard will remember this, it was February and there was snow on the ground, and we're up in the grill room, and Mr. Strasbaugh waves us over and sits us down. He wanted to talk about the lineup for the spring matches. Now it's February, you know, I'm the new pro. I'm like, wow, is this guy really into this? And you learn quickly that it's something that the club takes great pride in, and it's a privilege really to play for the Columbia team, but more importantly, I think it was a privilege to play at all the great clubs in this area. You know, I look around the room and see Jumbo over there, and great player, and been a great player for 40 years. You know, I've had the opportunity to tangle with him out on the golf course, and it's been nothing but fun. And you learn something every time you play with them. Had the good fortune in my participation to play with Mr. King, and I remember being paired with him in the 1979 Maryland Amateur. I think it was at Woodmont, and if you ever had the opportunity to play with, I mean, from 150 yards in, Dave King was the best. And in 18 days, I had the opportunity to play against Bobby Morris. It seemed like every year. And he would be paired with John Lieberger, and we just had a blast. And he was so fun to play with, and he was just fierce competitor. And you pick up from these things by watching and learning from these other players. And You know, I could watch Richard Holland play golf all day. You know, I've never been around a player that if things weren't going my way, you know, I'd probably slump my shoulders a little bit and maybe walk a little slower, and you know, it's just uplifting when you look over and there's Richard. You know, he's got his head high and walking like Tom Watson down the fairway. You can't tell whether he's winning or losing. He's just got such a great attitude. And of course, you know, having the privilege to play with on the same team as Marty West, Perky Cullinane, and Henry Delosier, and Michael's dad, Glenn Mitchell, and then Michael later on as my partner. It was great stuff, you know, great stuff.
Quite a cast of characters.
Oh yeah. We don't have enough time for those stories.
That's probably for the best.
No, that's right.
I know you're hopeful for the future of the game, both overall and here in Maryland, but what are you most hopeful about?
Well, you know, I think that what we've done a great job in the state of Maryland and what the clubs should really be very proud of is, you know, they've done a great job of looking after the next generation of leadership at their club. I had the privilege to play with Tom in the centennial celebration here at Manor, and you know, I'm a big Mike Sullivan fan. Just to watch the way that he's embraced the culture of this club and golf in the state of Maryland makes you optimistic. When I look out at the things that Corey and Kevin and Ryan McCarthy are doing at Argyle, you know, it's exciting. And then to watch Steve and Matt and Michael Mitchell as our golf chairman, and to see the great things that they're doing at Columbia, you know, it's easy to be optimistic. And then, of course, you know, as the Maryland State Golf Association, I think we've done a great job of bringing in some great leadership. You know, having Claire Conley and Billy Peel on the competitions committee, I think that's wonderful.
Terrific, terrific. Thank you. So I think we have a few minutes for questions from the audience. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask. Lee?
Hey, Bob. Being that we're both seniors, and it's been a while ago, can you tell us what it's like to have been a pro when you first started versus now?
Yeah, the business is changing. I guess when I was coming up, you know, we were teachers and we were players, and we taught, we played, and we did administrative. That's what we did. Those were the three prongs. And administration today is probably more of the pros. It takes a lot more time, the administration, than it did in the past. We have this thing called the email and the text, and it seems like I'm glad I got out before that got really going. But you know, I think that's the biggest change. You know, I know for the bulk of my career, I taught a lot of golf, and as a head professional, I know Jim did as well, and I think that's changing. You know, you go to a lot of the clubs, they have a director of instruction as well as a head pro or director of golf, and I think that's the biggest change that I see. Plus, the ball doesn't go as far for me anymore, so that's
You're not alone in that club. Mr. Taylor?
Sure, I have two questions, actually. The first is, Bob, I know you've worked with Denny through the years. What do you think makes Denny McCarthy great?
Let's see. Well, he's got a great set of hands. I think we all know that. I mean, the guy's a world-class putter, no question. He's a very, very hard worker. But more importantly, and I think to answer your question, is nobody's more prepared. Nobody's more prepared. I mean, if you go out and play a practice round, or you go out and walk a practice round, I've done it several times. I know Ryan's been on the bag plenty of times, and you know, nobody works that yardage book more than Denny McCarthy. I mean, he just works it, and he figures out what he's going to do on every hole, and he studies the wind conditions, and he figures out what the strategy is going to be if the wind's in, if the wind's down, you know, and then when you get the whole location sheet, you know, he's planning his strategy, and I think that's what separates him, and that's what gets him so confident when he's out there, because he's gone through all these scenarios in his head, and so when he gets up there, he's not surprised, and you could just see it, because he always plays the tough courses well. And you know, on tough golf courses, US Opens, there's a lot of trouble, but then he has a strategy, and you know, you watch what he did just yesterday. You know, he got through the tough part of the day in the rain, and because he's prepared. So I didn't know you get 2 questions. You know, you get this fancy award, now you get 2 questions.
Special bonus question.
You know, before I answer the first one, before I answer the second one, just wanted to just take a moment to just congratulate someone that's here in the audience. He's going to retire at the end of this year after just a stellar 45-year career as a golf professional in our state, most notably at Manor Country Club. So hats off to you, Greg Jones.
Okay, you're ready.
Second question. I know we're coming off like 3 straight wins, but what do you think we have to do to get OV motivated for the rest of the season?
Good question.
Finally, a subject that Jack and I actually know something about. You know, he'll be there in the end, you can bet on it. So, and thank you. And congratulations to you, Kevin. I mean, when I think that one of the things, Lee, and just to follow up with your question, is one of the things that hasn't changed and will probably never change. And I think Kevin is just a shining example of it. It's the golf professionals' responsibility at their respective club to create the atmosphere. And what they've got going on with that junior program over at Manor Country Club is just fantastic. It's great for the growth of the game, not only at Argyle, but at the growth of the game in the state of Maryland and across the country. And my first round as a member, you know, I had the privilege to play with Steve, and I went over there one afternoon, and this is a kid lurking around on the putting green, and it was young Brian. So I got to play my first round with Brian, and that was a real treat. And but you know, Kate T's always putting these kids where they need to be and guiding them the way they needed to be guided. Thank you for that. Congratulations.
Bob, thanks again for your time, and again, hearty congratulations on being in the PGA Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much.